Karoline Leavitt sat at the view table that Monday morning, her spine straight, her expression careful but unafraid. She had agreed to come on the show after a week of heated interviews about her outspoken stance on abortion restrictions. Some thought it was political suicide for the young conservative figure to walk into a studio where her every word would be twisted under hot lights. But Karoline had walked in like a woman who didn't mind being underestimated. Whoopi Goldberg opened the discussion with the kind of calm that felt like a wolf baring its teeth politely. She said, "Karoline Leavitt is here today. She's been making headlines for her push to tighten abortion laws at the state level. Karoline, a lot of people think your views are out of step with what women want in this country. Why do you believe you're right?" Karoline's hands were folded on the table. She leaned forward slightly, her voice even, but not meek. "Whoopi, I don't think the question should be what's popular. I think the question should be what protects life, the mother's life, the child's life. And that's never going to be an easy conversation." Joy Behar rolled her eyes so hard half the audience saw it before the cameras did. "So, you're what? Another one of these pro-life robots telling women what to do with their bodies?" The hush landed like a cold draft under the studio lights. Karoline didn't flinch. "Joy, what I am is a woman who believes we can do better than telling people their only option is to end a life." Sunny Hostin leaned in, her tone softer but sharper than Joy's. "Better how? You talk about protecting women, but you want to force them to carry pregnancies they didn't choose, sometimes in the worst circumstances imaginable." Karoline's voice was steady, but her fingers tightened together. "I want us to put as much energy into helping mothers as we do into ending pregnancies. That means adoption reform. That means better support systems. That means funding crisis centers instead of just funding abortions." Joy slammed her hand on the table, so lightly it sounded louder than it was. "You know that's not how it works, Karoline. You know women in certain states have zero access to health care, to child care, to anything they need. You want them to just figure it out while you pat yourself on the back for being pro-life?" Karoline looked at her, and the hush felt the heat flicker under her calm tone. "I don't pat myself on the back for anything. I just won't pretend we're empowering women when we tell them their best hope is no hope at all." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "So the government should have more say over women's bodies than women do?" Karoline's answer was soft, but the hush clung to every word. "I think when there's another heartbeat involved, we have a duty to speak for the voiceless." Joy leaned back, folding her arms so tight it looked like she was hugging her fury to her chest. "You want to go back to the 1950s? Women barefoot and pregnant, grateful to men who decide what's best for them." Karoline's chin lifted just a hair. "No, Joy. I want us to remember that compassion doesn't stop at the mother's skin. It includes the child." Sunny's pen tapped the table, her eyes locked on Karoline's face. "Do you know what happens to children in foster care, Karoline? Do you know what happens when women can't feed the kids they already have?" Karoline's voice dropped, the hush stretching tighter. "Yes, I do. And it's our shame as a country that we spend more time arguing about abortion than fixing that broken system." Joy cut her off, voice rising over the hush like a train whistle you can't ignore. "You know what's shameful? Women bleeding out in parking lots because they can't get care. Doctors too scared to help because politicians like you turn them into criminals." Karoline's breath hitched, just once, but her words hit back harder. "Nobody wants that, and you know it. But pretending abortion is the only solution is just another way to keep women trapped." The hush cracked as a few people in the audience clapped once, awkwardly, before the tension swallowed the sound whole. Whoopi leaned forward, her words heavy enough to push the hush down the audience's spines. "Karoline, what gives you the right to tell a woman what she can and can't do with her own body?" Karoline's eyes glistened for a split second, but her voice didn't waver. "I don't think it's about what gives me the right. It's about what gives any of us the right to ignore a beating heart." Joy barked out a harsh laugh. "You want women to die for that beating heart? What about the 10-year-old rape victim forced to give birth? What about the woman whose life is on the line?" Karoline's reply came slow, each word wrapped in the hush like a quiet dare. "I want us to fight like hell to protect every life. And if that makes me the villain at this table, so be it." Joy leaned in so close the hush felt her anger humming like a hornet trapped under glass. You don't get to sit here and pretend you're a saint, Karoline. You're just another woman telling other women how to live. Karoline's answer was so quiet the hush had to lean in to catch it. And you're just another woman telling them they can't do better. The hush knew then. This was only the beginning of the fire. Joy Behar's glare lingered so long the hush seemed to freeze around her, knuckles pressed into the table. Karoline Leavitt didn't shift in her chair. She just sat there, hands folded, letting the silence do what it did best, draw the real feelings to the surface. Whoopi's voice finally broke the hush, softer than before but coiled tight. Karoline, you keep saying you want to protect life. But who protects the mother when the laws you push take that choice away from her? Karoline turned her head just enough to look Whoopi in the eye. The mother deserves protection too, Whoopi. But real protection means more than telling her the only way out is to end her child's life. Sunny Hostin tapped her pen so lightly the hush clung to every click. And what about the stories that don't make headlines? The women who get left behind? The clinics that shut down so fast they can't even offer prenatal care? Karoline's voice didn't rise. If anything, it sank lower, forcing the hush to lean closer. It is wrong when a woman can't get the care she needs. But it's also wrong when the only answer we give her is to erase the life inside her. Joy's laugh punched through the hush like a knife tearing silk. You talk like you've walked a mile in those shoes. You haven't. You're just another conservative mouthpiece who'll never have to bleed out alone in the back of a car. Karoline didn't blink. Her knuckles whitened on the edge of the table, but her words came calm and clear. I've never claimed to know every woman's pain. But I know we can do better than this endless fight that leaves women alone and unborn babies dead. The audience shifted. Someone coughed. A single clap rang out, and then died as quickly as it started. The hush gathered it all up and pressed down harder. Whoopi leaned in, voice heavy with disbelief. You're not naive enough to think these so-called crisis centers you defend help every woman, are you? You know some lie, some shame women, some don't even have medical staff. Karoline's mouth tightened. Some do terrible things, yes, and I'll condemn them. But when was the last time we gave more funding to help a woman keep her baby instead of just pushing her to get rid of it? Joy's hands flew up, sarcastic applause that clapped once, twice, before she dropped them. So you're going to save all these babies with wishful thinking and bake sales? You want to force them into a broken foster system or families that don't want them? Karoline's eyes glistened, her jaw tightening. I want to fix the system that failed them. But you can't fix a system by erasing the people it was supposed to protect. Sunny spoke now, her tone a scalpel sliding under the hush. How do you fix it when the same people who want bans also cut funding for healthcare, housing, education? How do you fix that? Karoline's answer came slower this time, the hush squeezing tighter around every word. You hold leaders accountable on both sides. You don't throw up your hands and say, well, it's too broken, so let's just keep ending lives. Joy leaned in so close their foreheads could have touched if Karoline had leaned back, but she didn't. You want to be a saint, Karoline? You think that makes you a hero for women? Karoline's voice cracked, but only once. No, I'm not a hero. I'm just not willing to pretend abortion is some perfect answer that frees women instead of scarring them. The hush vibrated with that word, scarring, like it scratched the paint off the walls. Whoopi's hand flattened on the table. So you'd rather traumatize a woman by forcing her to give birth to her rapist child? Karoline's shoulders tensed. Those cases break my heart. And I don't pretend they're easy. But we don't punish the innocent for the crime of the guilty. Joy shot up out of her chair, voice sharp enough to cut glass. It's not punishment when a woman says, I can't do this. You want to slap handcuffs on her womb. That's what you want. Karoline's breath caught, but she forced the words out. I want her to know we see her pain. But we can't pretend the baby doesn't exist because that's more convenient for us. Sunny's pen dropped to the table, a tiny click that hit the hush like a drumbeat. You know you sound like every man who's ever told a woman, just close your legs if you didn't want to get pregnant. Karoline's head shook, that single motion stiff as iron. No, Sunny. I'm saying life is messy. It's not a bumper sticker. It's 2 heartbeats, 2 stories, not just one. Joy slammed both palms on the table, leaning forward, eyes blazing. Your story is you think you're better than women who made a choice you don't like. Karoline's voice cracked wide open, soft but slicing the hush clean through. No, Joy. My story is I won't stand here and pretend they didn't deserve better options. The audience's hush splintered. Whispers, a half gasp, a camera phone rising behind a shoulder. Whoopi sat back, voice low, words landing like stones in the silence. Karoline, do you really think you're helping women when you tell them you know better than they do what they can survive? Karoline's eyes didn't leave hers. No, I think I'm helping them remember they're worth more than the lie that says life is disposable. And the hush knew the heat would only burn higher from here. Joy Behar's jaw was clenched so tight the hush seemed to buzz around her teeth. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed like she was bracing for an earthquake she'd started herself. Karoline Leavitt sat across from her, spine straight, eyes clear but ringed with a sheen that looked too much like hurt for someone the audience had decided was the villain. Whoopi Goldberg's voice cut through first, smooth but edged. Karoline, you keep saying women deserve better. But better means what exactly? What do you want to see in a country where abortion is banned or restricted? Karoline drew a breath so long it pulled the hush close. I want to see real support for mothers who choose life. I want fathers held accountable. I want communities stepping up instead of just pointing fingers. Sunny Hostin's pen hovered midair, her eyes locked on Karoline. That's a pretty speech. But when the cameras are off, what do you really do? You want to tell people what you stand for. What do you stand on? Karoline's hand curled on the table, knuckles white. I stand on the fact that we can't call ourselves a compassionate society if our first solution is to take a life. Joy barked out a bitter laugh that sliced the hush into ribbons. Compassion? You think you're Mother Teresa now? You don't get to preach compassion when you'd make a rape victim carry a pregnancy she never asked for. Karoline flinched, just a flicker, but didn't back down. I think we can hold the rapist accountable without punishing the child for the crime. Joy leaned forward, words dripping like acid. You're not the one who has to wake up every day carrying that nightmare inside her. How dare you stand here acting like you'd understand? Karoline's voice cracked just once, but the hush clung to every syllable. I'll never understand it. And I'll never pretend that pain isn't real. But if I have to choose, I choose to protect the life that didn't choose any of it. The audience was caught in the hush, a few people shifting, a cough swallowed by the weight in the air. Whoopi's hands folded in front of her, her tone dipping low. Karoline, I don't think you're cruel. But I think you're naive if you believe this country will suddenly fix all its broken systems because you tell people abortion is off the table. Karoline's shoulders tensed. I know the system is broken, Whoopi. But do you think it's less broken when we treat babies as disposable? How is that the best we can do? Sunny's pen dropped, a soft tap that hit the hush like thunder. So your answer is a moral lecture. Women in poverty, women of color, they're just supposed to hold on tighter, right? Karoline's eyes flicked to her, wide but unwavering. No, they deserve better than a system that tells them the only way out is to lose a child and carry that loss alone. Joy scoffed, voice sharp enough to shred paper. Oh, please. You talk about loss. What about the living women who die because of your policies? You want to talk about pain? You've never seen it up close. Karoline's breath caught. She turned, voice low enough that the hush leaned all the way in. I've sat with women who regret it every day. I've held their hands when they say they wish someone had told them they could do it, that they weren't alone. Whoopi's eyebrow rose. So you want to make your truth every woman's truth? Karoline's chin lifted. No, I want them to know there's more than one truth. And it's not just the one Planned Parenthood puts on a billboard. The hush twisted at that, the word Planned Parenthood landing like a lit match in a dry field. Joy's face went red. You want to see women die to prove your point. That's what you want. You want them bleeding out in parking lots to make a moral statement. Karoline's hands trembled now, but her voice didn't. I want us to stop acting like abortion is healthcare when it's the only medical procedure we celebrate for ending a life. Sunny cut in, voice sharp as a blade. And you think taking away access saves lives? Karoline's eyes flashed, the hush vibrating around her words. I think it's a lie to tell a woman she can't do hard things, that her dreams end when a baby comes. We should fight for her hope, not just her right to give up. Joy slapped the table, the sound snapping through the hush like a gunshot. You want to see hope? Go to Alabama. Go to Mississippi. Go look a poor black woman in the eye and tell her you'll save her baby when you won't even save her. Karoline's jaw clenched so tight the hush held its breath. I will look her in the eye, and I will tell her I will fight for her, too. Not just her baby. The audience stirred, a low ripple of gasps and murmurs, but the hush pressed them flat. Whoopi's voice dropped so low it felt like it sank into the floorboards. Karoline, you walked into this studio knowing we'd ask you the questions you don't want to answer. So answer this. If you could, would you ban abortion nationwide? No exceptions. Karoline's eyes glistened, but her answer came clear and steady. I would fight for every heartbeat, but I would never pretend it's simple. It's not. Joy leaned in, teeth bared like a dog ready to bite. Then you're no better than the men who made those laws decades ago. You're just the new pretty face on the same old cruelty. Karoline didn't blink. Call me cruel all you want, Joy. I'd rather be called cruel than pretend we're not killing our future. The hush knew then. The next spark would blow the roof off. The studio had gone breathless. The hush didn't linger anymore. It stalked the table now, circling the panel like it was waiting for someone to flinch. Joy Behar stared at Karoline Leavitt like she wasn't just wrong, she was dangerous. Whoopi Goldberg was the first to speak again, but the warmth was gone from her voice. Karoline, this show has welcomed people from all sides. But what you're saying, it's not just unpopular, it's harmful. Karoline met her gaze without blinking. Telling the truth about what abortion is may feel harmful, but silence is worse. People deserve honesty, even if it's hard. Joy leaned forward, voice a low growl now. You think you're being brave? You're being reckless. You come here, spout talking points, smile sweet, and pretend you care while pushing policies that break women's lives. Karoline's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking now. What breaks women's lives, Joy, is being told over and over that they can't do it. That motherhood is a failure. That a child is a burden. Sunny Hostin, who had stayed composed, let her frustration finally show. It's not just words, Karoline. It's law. It's real lives. Real women losing their freedom and their futures because of the bills you support. Karoline looked at her, and for the first time, her voice cracked. And what about the futures we never let begin? What about the girls who grow up never knowing they had a sister? What about the men who live with the guilt and never talk about it? Joy stood up fully now, her voice sharp enough to cut steel. You are not the one who decides what a woman can live with. You don't get to dress up oppression in a Sunday dress and call it compassion. Karoline stood too. The hush didn't even try to hold her back. I'm not deciding anything, but I refuse to stand here and act like abortion is some sacred right that can never be questioned. Women are strong enough for the truth. The audience shifted. A few clapped. Some booed. Phones were up everywhere now. The hush had shattered. This was fire now. Whoopi's voice turned hard. You don't get to come here and lecture us on strength. Strength is facing reality, not retreating into fantasy about every pregnancy being a gift. Karoline didn't step back. And you don't get to act like there's only one kind of woman who deserves a voice. Just because I disagree doesn't make me less of one. Joy pointed at her, furious. You're the one silencing women. You want to take us backward. You want power. Don't hide behind faith or values. This is about control. Karoline's hands were trembling, but her voice came louder than it had all show. You talk about power, Joy? The abortion industry makes billions off women's fear, off their pain, and you protect it like it's holy. That's the real control. Joy stepped around the table now. You're done here. I'm not giving you a platform to shame survivors and spit moral judgments while pretending to care. Karoline took a step forward too, facing her without blinking. You don't get to decide who's allowed at this table. You don't own this conversation. Security had started moving quietly at the edge of the stage, unsure if they were being called or just watching chaos unfold. Sunny stood now too, trying to cool things down. We can have disagreement, but this has gone too far. Karoline, your words hurt people. Karoline turned to her, voice raw. The truth hurts sometimes, but it also sets people free. Whoopi's voice snapped like a whip. This isn't truth. This is cruelty wrapped in self-righteousness. Karoline turned to her slowly. And this show? This show wraps cruelty in applause. The audience gasped. The silence that followed didn't feel like hush. It felt like the ceiling had fallen. Joy's voice dropped. Get her off this stage. Security stepped forward now, slow but certain. Karoline looked at them, then at the panel. Her eyes didn't waver. I came here thinking we could talk. I was wrong. This isn't a table for women. It's a stage for bullies. Whoopi stepped back. You're not a victim, Karoline. Karoline took one final look around the room. No, but a lot of women are. And they deserve someone who doesn't flinch when the world tries to silence them. She turned, walking past security without waiting for them to touch her. The cameras followed as the audience erupted, some cheering, some shouting, all part of a moment that was already exploding across social media. As Karoline disappeared backstage, Joy sat down again, fuming. I've never been so insulted by a guest in my life. Sunny stayed standing. She didn't speak. Whoopi looked out at the audience, then back at the empty chair. No one filled it. They cut to commercial in silence. And across the country, people weren't just watching, they were choosing sides. Some called Karoline brave. Some called her cruel. But no one called her forgettable. Because what she said, and how she stood, it couldn't be erased. Not by shouting. Not by walking her off stage. And not by pretending the debate was ever really settled.